Tell me about a time in your life where you felt like, yo, my life is not worth living, or you didn't necessarily feel that your life was worth living.
I would say a time where it didn't feel worth living was when, right before I went to college. So I applied to college, applied to one university. Number one, never should have done that, but it all worked out for my good. I applied to, I was dating a guy in high school, and he was going to the University of Cincinnati, and I was like, you know what, like, he's the one. Like, I'm gonna follow him. I'm gonna go, you know, wherever he goes. You know, he going to law school. He gonna have money. Like, I'm going, you know. So I applied to the University of Cincinnati. I got in. My parents wanted me to apply to different universities, but I was resistant because I was so tied up in this relationship. And I just knew that he was the one, and I knew that I was gonna marry him. So I ended up applying there, and so I got accepted. I started in September of 2011. We broke up October of 2011. I was devastated. I was so depressed. I gained so much weight. And at that point, I realized that all of my identity was locked up in this relationship. And so going to school, you know, because he went to this university, like, I was like, I'm done. Like, I'm leaving this university. You're the reason I came here, and now we broke up. And there was no, like, you know, it's, you know, there was no, like, common ground, like, okay, you know, this is why we're breaking up, blah, blah, blah. Like, he just stopped talking to me. He just stopped ignoring me. I would see him. I saw him, like, 5 months after that, and I was just like, I'm done, you know, and I was devastated. I didn't want to see him anymore. But I realized that, like, looking back, like, wow, I was so immature. I was so not confident. But like, in that space, I just felt so worthless. Like, I didn't know who to talk to about it. I had one person that I talked to about it, but it was embarrassing almost, because I'm like, I chose this school because of you, you know, and now you're gone. Like, what do you mean? I had an apartment. He would never come visit, you know, obviously because we broke up during that time. And so I just felt so worthless. I did terrible. My first quarter was terrible. I felt like, why am I even here, you know? And I wasn't at home, so I didn't have that comfort from my family or anything like that. And I was not about to tell my parents. Like, that was just embarrassing. I would never tell them I went to school because of a guy. So I would say a year after that, I met some friends. I had some mentors, because I was like, okay, I can't stay in this broken place. Like, yes, I was broken for months, but I can't stay here. And how I respond to my pain is very crucial in this season. So I talked to my mentor, and I kind of confided in her about the situation. And she was like, well, what's one thing that you want to accomplish at UC? And I'm like, I'm not staying here. I'm going to Florida. I'm going far, far away. I'm running away from this guy. And it was something that was internal inside of me that I was running away from. It wasn't necessarily just that relationship, but that the things that I had suppressed for so many years was now coming out, and I had to confront it. I had, you know, the option to confront what I was going through or run away from it. And I kept seeing the repetition of that in my life. And I was like, wow, like, I actually have to confront this now, because if I'm going to another university, now I have to explain to my parents. And that was just embarrassing. So anyway, so I confided in my mentor, and she said, what's one thing you want to accomplish before you leave here? And I said, I want my tuition paid for by next year. And she said, well, you've made your request known, so you keep up your grades above a 3.5 and we'll make that happen. And I was like, okay, you know. And at that point I was like, well, I'm still feeling like, I literally had to be real with myself. I'm like, if he texts me back, am I going to respond to him? Am I going to go back to that place? Because that's all I had known. And he never texted me back, which is great. Or he never texted me, which was amazing. But in that time, I was like, wow, like, I put 4 years of high school into this, and now I'm just here. Like, so it was very hard to overcome that. But with friends, prayer, and really understanding, like, my confidence does not need to lie in any human being, because people are going to upset me. It needs to be in Christ. And when I was 18, so I started college when I was 17. When I turned 18, I randomly got invited to this Bible study on campus called Student Body of Christ at UC. So, and I was invited to that, and it changed my life forever. However, it was a process. So I went to the first one, and I was still tugging you know, like, well, you know, I still need to be at the parties, so my friends are there, like, I want to still be cool. I want to be a cool kid too, and smart, and, you know, trying to figure out who I am. So I would go to these parties and feel so empty, so like, oh, I didn't get the attention, you know, that I thought I deserved. Or I remember being peer pressured into getting a belly button piercing, like, because all my roommates got one, and we went out that night, and I was like, why are these guys not giving me the attention that I think I deserve? And it's because my identity was in just people's affirmation, which was great. You know, you can be affirmed by people, but you have to understand, you know, where your identity lies, which, thank God, now is in Christ only and first.
So even with, you know, all the different things that you talked about that you encountered from the relationship, from identity and worth and value, and even like, you know, establishing that relationship with the Lord, where did you come to a space where you were able to look and see like, yo, I'm really like, this is, like you said, like, this is not okay. So was it, you know, after going through that relationship that you realized like, this life that I've been living is not okay. These ways are not okay. And what advice would you have for somebody that's currently in that space of, okay, I'm trying to identify, you know what I mean? Like, that my identity is rooted in something other than it should be, or I'm trying to identify that I'm not happy. You know, what advice would you give to somebody that's kind of in that space to learn to identify, to process?
The point that I felt, you know, my life is not worth living was when we were no longer in connection. You know, we talked every day. You know, like I stated, I went to this university because of this guy. Didn't even get the most money from the school, but that's besides the point. I think when I stopped talking to him, and I have been an athlete since I was 8. So when I gained over 50 pounds. So at that point I realized, like, okay, I need to take control over the situation, because this situation has taken control over not only my, you know, my internal, my heart and everything, but like my physical. And that is important to me. You know, I've been running since I was 8, and now I'm 50, 60 pounds heavier. So at that point I was like, okay, I'm not myself anymore. I'm just eating my feelings away. I'm eating everything away. And I'm depending on food, which I was ignoring what the actual situation was. So I think when I reached out, the moment I realized that I'm like, okay, I need to get help, was when I went home, and I wasn't really myself, and my parents knew it, but we really never had that connection where they could talk to me about things like that on an intimate level. And so I opened up to a friend who I would say discipled me through my first year of college.
Being whole, what does it mean for you to kind of debunk a life worth living?
Mm-hmm. So my name is Shao May. I am the founder and writer of the Nude blog, and wholeness to me means being honest with yourself, being fully transparent, telling yourself your flaws, and being okay having those flaws, but working towards improving yourself holistically.
And what does that look like? Working towards and kind of, you know, doing the work. When we always talk about doing work, what does that mean?
Doing the work to me means, man, accepting where you're at currently and listening to those who have your best interests. Listening to your mom, who, if you're really close with her and have that relationship, you know she has, you know, the best for you. And writing down how you feel, writing down what triggers you, you know, what upsets you. And then working on responding to those triggers in a healthy state of mind. Taking deep breaths and being okay with not being in control. Being okay with crying. Being okay with understanding that it's okay to seek for professional help. Read the best-selling authors. I'm reading a book called The Control Freak, because I'm kind of a control freak, and I've accepted that, but I'm willing to improve and not be so much in control.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And what is some just practical advice that you would give to anybody who's currently, you know, in the grit of doing that work?
If you're in the grit of understanding where you're at I would say, however you seek spiritual growth, do that. If you want to pray to God, pray to God. If you want to go to church, do it. Just be 100% at it. And it's easier said than done, but it's going to take work. Ashanti Lancaster, she's a relationship coach, and she has I Am Woman, and she's a first lady at her church. She told me the greatest or the most challenging thing you'll do in your life is working on you. We lie to ourselves, we put masks on ourselves, and I was like, yo, okay, this is too real, but it's so real that it's good word that's gonna like feed my soul and my spirit. If you're ever in a depressing state of mind, don't isolate yourself. Run to those who really have your best interests. Run to those who love you. Run to that support. And notice your surrounding and your environment. Are you eating? No? Because you're too stressed out. Okay. Write what you're stressed out about and write where you want to be. I tell myself this a lot more. Dr. Miles Moore, I love him. He said, decisions made in 30 seconds can birth consequences that last a lifetime. It took a lot of me sitting myself down to understand I might be heated in the moment, or I might feel sad and angry and hurt. But if I give into that response that's really unhealthy, now I have to deal with these consequences, and I'm like doing extra work than what I could originally just did. So decisions made in 30 seconds can birth consequences that last a lifetime.
That's good.
Just breathe.
I think a lot of times for me, it's kind of difficult kind of to just be in a space where you actually embrace the life that is worth living. For me, it's kind of difficult because, I'm this prominent intercessor at my church. I'm the girl who works for the news, but at the same time, a lot of times I think that I struggle with just realizing how far the Lord has brought me in such a short time frame, I guess. And so for me, this has been a process overall of learning to just embrace my life that is worth living. Even today, with this project that we're working on, there's been so many things transpire, and it's like, I don't know, I just believe that like everything happens for a reason. For me personally, I don't believe in things happening coincidentally. But again, I feel like a life is a lot about our response versus what it is that actually happens to us. And so I just think that in this space that I'm in, I'm just learning to embrace every moment, embrace every curve, embrace every mistake, every difficulty, and administer grace, not only to other people, but also to self. Because ultimately that's what it's about. Life is not just about the product that we produce, but it's essentially about the process. So the process of becoming whole. And for me personally, it's going to be different depending on who you ask, but I personally feel like, the process of becoming is a lifetime journey. So whenever we reach a space in our life or even our walk with the Lord where it's like we've arrived, you know what I mean? And if we do feel that way, that's pride that needs to kind of be dismantled. But at the end of the day, like, my life is so imperfect. It has different difficulties and challenges that I face every day, but ultimately I know that it is worth living. Your life is worth living. So whether, you have everything that you desire to have, or if you have the relationship or you don't, you have the title or you don't, you have the education or you don't, like, if you have breath in your lungs and you woke up this morning, like, your life is worth living. And so even with this event, that's kind of what we are promoting. It's not just wholeness and mental wealth, but life itself, speaking life, and not just speaking life to others, but learning how to really embrace, like I said, that process of becoming. The reason that it's so imperative for me to kind of help other people is because I was that girl. So a lot of things goes back to perception. Like, I'm not the face that you would assume, you were hospitalized for a suicide attempt? You, the preacher's kid, the journalist. But again, it's like, mental illness, it doesn't have a name, a gender, a certain ethnicity or social status. But I feel like, to be honest, a lot of us are struggling. Not too many people are willing to say, I'm struggling, I'm feeling depressed today. And even going back to a lot of times, I feel like we think we extend ourselves to people, but we really don't. So say I ask someone, oh, hey, so-and-so, how are you? Naturally my expectation is for them to say, good, how are you? But in the event that they're like, I'm feeling pretty suicidal today, I'm pretty depressed, a lot of us not only don't know how to handle that, but I personally feel like we don't want to deal with it. We're unable to kind of embrace other people's truth. And so
that in itself, that alone, I feel like is obviously a reality check for us. But again, it's like we all need community. I feel like for me, just to be honest, the exact thing that I tried to flee from is what saved my life, which is essentially my community. And so it's like naturally when we go through things, it's like, I'm gonna shut down, I'm gonna get off Instagram, I'm gonna just kind of like they were like joust and isolate. But again, it's like isolation will literally kill you. Isolation almost killed me. But it took, you know, that persistent mom. It took that, you know, annoying sister-in-law Taylor to kind of just be like, yo, what is going on? You know what I mean? And it wasn't from a space of I'm just trying to be in your business, but it's like, at the time frame, that's how I felt. But in hindsight, looking back at it, like, I know for a fact I'm alive today because of my community. And so it's just wild, man, you know, like how you grow and you evolve over time. But again, it takes that intentionality. Because I always tell people healing is a choice, but so is not healing. So it's like, you know, whether we go through like traumatic experiences or not, it's like our response to those things are ultimately what matter. So I use me for example. Like when I came out of the world, I was in this very toxic relationship that was so unpleasing to the Lord. And for me, I felt in that present moment that suicide was the way out. Do I know now that it wasn't? I mean, obviously. But in the moment, it was just everything that I was going through and everything that I was dealing with. It felt like death would feel better than all this pain that I'm currently dealing with, you know? And so again, had I just been like, I'm not going to go in the process of healing. I'm just going to be bitter for the rest of my life. And, you know, it was always I viewed things from the lens of victimization at that, you know, point in time. So it was always this person, to where I was unable to see kind of how I played a role in that kind of thing, you know? But ultimately, it's like healing for me personally took intentionality. And obviously, like, I'm on that process of becoming whole, but I'm still not in a space where it's like I've arrived or I'm completely whole. And so I would just say to anybody who's in a space where you are stable in who you are, but you're also growing, embrace the process. I can't stress that enough.
What do you hope that people will walk away from? Or what do you want people to walk away from the event?
So, my ultimate goal for people to come in and attend this event, kind of the takeaways from this, is for them to walk away with not only practical tools as it pertains to how to better their mental health, but also with, you know, actual resources, with community, and just with more hope. You know what I mean? A lot of times I think that we live in such a hopeless world, such a hopeless generation, where it's kind of like, deal with life, do the work. But it's kind of like, how do we do that? You know, what does the practicality of doing the work actually look like? And so we're going to have 3 mini workshops where we're kind of going to debunk not only lies of the enemy that, you know, he's placed upon our mental health, but just lies of society that we believe, you know, through society about our mental health. Because the reality is, you can recover from being diagnosed with a mental illness. I'm literally living proof of that every single day. But again, it not only takes, you know, the willingness, it takes intentionality. Just like we work out our bodies, we have to work out our minds. You know, the things that we put in our minds and our bodies are so imperative through, you know, even from movies to music to gossip, like all these different things that play such a vivid and an avid role in our mental health. But again, we have to just, you know, be intentional about doing that work. So please come out to the event. If you have not registered yet, just go online. The website is welcometothestoryline.org. You go to the events tab and just go ahead and register. And yeah, that's the ultimate goal, is for people to leave not only empowered, but to help just get them on the right track to freedom. This event is for anybody who has either struggled with any form of mental illness, if you're in the grit of, you know, dealing with your mental illness, or even if you know somebody who's dealing with a mental illness. So we'll have, you know, licensed professionals as well as different people sharing testimonials there as well. And so come out so that you're able to kind of see, because you will leave changed. That is not only my goal, but that is my mandate for this. That's my declaration, that people will leave changed, even if it's with a new perspective, you know what I mean, about their walk and their journey. Like, people will leave changed. So if you want to be changed, this event is for imperfect people like myself. So yeah, register.